All right, and we are live on YouTube as well. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Finding Beautiful Questions. I have with me today Golda. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah, thank you so much, Bryant. Name's Golda Velez. I am a co-founder of whatsCookin, which is a cooperation engine for communities.
And so, me and Golda met on a platform that supports a movement in the DAO space. For anyone that is not familiar, that is a distributed autonomous organization. And this is an experimental organizational theory that is working in the blockchain space. If you're interested, the platform we met on is colony.io. And there's some really cool folks working on some, let's say, altruistic, amazing things over there. And really, that's where what we're here to talk about are some of the amazing things Gold is doing. And if you're interested, anyone out there, just one thing to start the episode is go where other people are doing the same things you are, right? And just, it's like the local bar, right?
Right, right.
Find your academic space, find your social space, and we've
Uh-huh.
got so many tools to do that. So thank you for joining me. What are you excited about today?
Oh, I mean, there's so much going on. We have a lot of neat things happening in our project. I'm actually really excited about a chat we're putting together in Kenya on a subject of gender violence near Nairobi. And I'm excited about some work we might do um, with the decentralized web space. It's amazing to me how these different things tie together, which is kind of the latest technology and the needs of people all around the world.
Yeah, that's amazing how we can bring a bunch of different resources like time or ideas or relationships together to respond to different things. And so how'd you get involved in those kinds of things?
It's very emergent. Um, we are a community building platform, and we love to ask people what they would like to do with other people because we're all about making those connections and turning ideas into reality. And so we dog food, which means in the software world that it's a software term for eat your own dog food. It started at Microsoft, and it means that whatever you make, you should do it yourself. So we asked our own team, what things would you do with other people? And we had all kinds of different ideas, some of which are becoming reality. And so that event in Kenya is from one of our team members who happens to be in Nairobi, and she's starting to host that event. We're also putting one together here in Tucson. We did one for fundraising for teachers. We're helping with an event that's a petition signing um, for voter access to the polls. So there's people using our platform for many different things, and I tend to get in the weeds and I get excited about the very specific things. But really, what we have to do is make the platform scalable so that it enables all these things. It is very peer-to-peer and hands-on, so it's while some people imagine their platform to just be some technology that people plug into and use, we really see it as a platform and a network of people who help each other. It's kind of both.
Very cool. So just so I have this clear in my mind as well as everybody else, is What's Cooking is a space where people are can engage in really what's happening for them, right? And they can find others through a peer-to-peer environment where they can connect.
Very well said. Yes, you're hired.
All right, nice. And peer-to-peer, I'll boil that down for people even further, is this is just person to person, right?
Uh-huh.
The feedback between people is the best way that we know of, I think, is a society or as a global society to produce what people feel about things. If someone is interested in that, you can check out eBay and their initial rating systems and what was really found with the peer-to-peer rating systems of how we star a seller and how we give them feedback on their performance and whatnot. And others can use that to validate their performance or the purchase in the future.
That's right.
Um,
I think rating systems have taken on a life of their own, which in some ways is not healthy. So we're trying to go in a different direction of more
yes.
natural language feedback.
Have you noticed how um, and you work with some big tech companies. You're welcome to share that if you wish. Um, I've noticed that having to give like a driver, for example, I used to drive for Uber after I left trading. It was something, it was a social experiment for me. I got to meet different people,
Yeah,
ask some questions, write down that
right.
feedback. It was great. And I noticed that when I would work with other drivers, I'd always give them a 5 star,
Oh, of
right?
course.
Generally, because,
Anything
or
other than
like other
5
bartenders,
is
right?
horrible, right?
Like a bartender to other bartenders, right? Yeah,
Oh, I
big
mean, I think
tip.
everybody gives a 5 unless they're mean. I mean, it's basically it's turned into just either a yes or no. It's like either you give someone a perfect score or
Mm.
you're saying something bad about them is really what's happening because
Y-
everybody needs a perfect score. And I think the problem with that is the publicness of the rating. And so we're looking at doing something a little bit different. Um, we want to give people private feedback about what could improve, not public. And then as far as the public information, we just want to track repeat users. So we want to say that this person, whoever comes to them, came again. And that's like voting with your feet. And so I think I'm more interested in people's behavior. Did you come again to that person? Now, you don't have that possibility with Uber. You can't get the same driver again. You can't ask for the same driver again. But with cooking, you can go, and I didn't say that on our platform in communities, it's these longer term relationships we're looking for. And it might involve home cooking as well as other types of things people can do together because we all have to eat, and food is involved with a lot of building community and creating things that happen between people. There's often food involved. And you can go back to the same person again. And so I think monitoring that behavior is actually going to be a lot more informative than the stars.
Yes, any idea needs sustenance, right?
Mhm.
And you're focused on the sustainability of what's happening, what's cooking. I
Yeah,
love it. I love it. That's great. So I wanna hop into that big, beautiful question,
right,
right? That
right.
I'm just so excited, like so
Uh-huh.
excited to hear over here. So what's that question that drives you? The thing that gets you out of bed, the thing that maybe is the itch that you're like, why is it this way in the world? What's that big,
Right.
beautiful question?
And I think for me, it's how do we help each other kind of achieve our potentials or get the most out of this world, get the most out of this life journey for ourselves. And how do we help each other do that?
So it's driven you to do some pretty amazing things. When did you realize this?
I think it's been an evolutionary process. I think really, I mean, back as far as I can remember, opportunity was always of interest to me and people's potentials. And it's always been interesting to me how a lot of people who've achieved really cool things, had parents or immediate community that was doing some pretty cool things that were related. And so, it's like everybody should have that possibility of being in a network with people doing amazing things that they can feed off of. And so I think that's kind of been a background thought for me for a very long time. I remember in high school writing the This I Believe essay, and it had a lot of that stuff in it. But more recently, um, that driving need that we really need to build community, I think came out of the events since 2016, where there was a sense that, wow, we could be in a lot of danger as a community. I could be in danger. My friends could be in danger. Who knows what could happen. I work with a lot of people in different countries where there's been a slide to authoritarianism, where there's been a slide to governmental violence. And to me, those things are very real. I'm a Jewish person, and so I've read a lot about, what happened in Germany, and what always struck me was how most people didn't do anything about it. And so when I'm seeing things that are, abusing immigrants, where the Cameroonian immigrants are being sent back on 36-hour plane rides in shackles to a place where they're in danger and not given their documents, there's some really horrific things that are happening in this country that we're kind of blind to. And so I guess that's a long way around of saying that I can't solve these things by myself, and we really need to build strong networks with each other. And I was actually going around making sure people had voted in 2018 and knocking on my neighbors' doors. And they were like, "Oh yeah, didn't you come around 2 years ago in 2016?" And I was like, "Oh, I guess I did. I guess that's the only time I ever talked to you. I'm sorry." And so there was a thought that maybe I should invite them to dinner in between, and maybe we should all do that, be inviting each other to dinner and building those strong communities. And that's kind of where that idea evolved from. But then it really evolved with the team. I found a partner right away who's not on this podcast, named Khalil Knight Papiano, and then we kind of built up a team. And then it's really not just me, it's been the team that's built what we have so far.
Yeah, the community builds it. We look what we have accomplished together, right?
Right.
That's a great statement to make. And then I really like how you were out helping people get involved in voting in that process. And you realize that's such a cool moment, right? You breezed right past it, but that's such a cool moment of, well, maybe I should invite them to dinner.
Right, right.
What
Yeah,
a
there was
powerful
things.
realization. Yeah. Yeah, there's just those little moments. It's like, I'm gonna do that. That's
Yeah,
really cool. And now we have what's cooking.
yeah, yeah, and it's continuing to grow. So you may not have seen it yet, but yeah, whatsCookin.us, and you can create your own circle. You can join. You can wish for things. You can offer things, and we're continuing to evolve it right now.
So in summary, we covered a couple of things. We covered, why did you start? What's your answer and how you're going to pull it off. So what's your answer? Right? You've got this amazing question. What's the answer? In the way I've framed that in the past is it's sort of you living your life, right? You're living your life as a way to better understand the question that you framed, and you've produced amazing things from that pursuit of understanding. Would you say that's fair to say?
I don't know how I have a pretty high bar for amazing, but we're working on it.
Okay. I think two lives are like apples. Both are great.
Uh-huh. And I think the how to pull it off is really, you have all this technology that's letting us essentially build new structures. And so the question is, how do we make this technology serve cooperative principles? Because you can take the technology, you can try to build structures that give one person control. And I think, Jeff Bezos and Mr. Zuckerberg have, tried to use the technology to kind of put themselves on a pinnacle by doing things that are somewhat useful for other people, but also by maintaining that control. And now they have this kind of top-down system that they have, which they have central control over. And to me, that's an unhealthy system. And I'm not saying those are terrible guys. They're probably perfectly nice people, but I don't think one person should have central control over many other people. I think that's a bad pattern. So my interest is, how do you build the technology and how do you leverage the technology to create a healthier ecosystem? And I've made the analogy between dinosaurs and mammals, where the dinosaurs got bigger and bigger until you had this giant T-Rex with a big mouth and a teeny brain that was like running around eating everybody. But you also had these tiny little mammals, which just had the ability to cooperate with each other and the ability, to interact with each other. And they all had kind of the same DNA, and some of them had the ability to communicate. And it turned out that the mammals won. Maybe we need a meteor to crash. I don't know, but but somehow or other, the mammals were actually the more stable pattern. And so I'm looking to make a pattern like that, where it's more um, independent agents who are cooperating intentionally with each other through technology, and empowering their communities through technology. And a big part of that has to be the reputation and trust and understanding who they are willing to work with. Um, and I think that's have to go beyond that rating system, but something like that is important because you have to be
Mm,
able to protect each
I
other.
love it how you
Uh,
loop that together, right? Because you had the centralization, you asked the question of how can we produce technology that encourages the outcomes of, let's say, it sounds like you're very vigilant about the balance of power, and you're very in tune with how power is generated. And so no wonder we met each other in decentralized communities and
right,
those kinds of
right,
things. Like there's no surprise there. So
right.
um, well, here let's start broadening the topic, right? Because we've got economic examples like Hayek's Road to Serfdom. We've got Ethereum with its statements of how we can operate as decentralized nodes and those kinds of things. And we've got DAOs sort of coming together. We've got government and sovereignty. We've got business interests. We've got technology, culture, right? All of those things in this big matrix going on here. So, what do you think are some of the real drivers or incentives? I think that's something we can talk across the board here to adopt what you're referring to, because yes, it would be amazing if coming back to the rating systems, it would be amazing if everybody gave an honest answer and said, hey, you know what, I for most services that I work with, I'll give someone like a very specifically like a 3.8 out of 5. I'm like, hey, that's a 3.8. If I was judging figure skating, I'm not going to give you a 10 out of 10, right? It's something you really need to earn. I'm right there with you. I wrote papers in the past about how gratuities are actually a diminishment of the
Mhm.
person within our current society and those kinds of things. So, what do you feel really broadens the topic on incentive? Like, what would be the
I think
incentive?
that people actually are not only motivated by money. I mean, that may come as a surprise to some folks who are modeling everything in terms of money. But I've actually written on this too for Hacker Noon. Um, there are things that cannot be modeled as completely anonymous, tokenized, transferable value. I mean, money is a useful thing. It's kind of like the bloodstream that flows. It's liquid. You can transfer it. You can consume it. You can spend it. You can give it to someone else. But in fact, out of the 24 hours in everyone's day, they're not spending all 24 hours optimizing the amount of money that they'll have. They might be spending time with a family or friend, and I like to make the analogy that there's things that you can tell that they don't transfer to money because you wouldn't transfer them. Like, Brian, could I pay you however much money you want? I got a lot of money. I want to pay you to hit your best friend in the head and cut off his arm. How much would it take? Is there a certain amount of money that you would do that for? Um, and for many people, the answer would be no. I would hope that might be the answer for you. It depends how much you like your best friend. Um, but there are things that are clearly not transferable into any amount of money. It's simply there is no amount of money in which that computes. And if you read like some of the like Russian dissenter literature, I just finished reading To Build a Castle. They didn't know what to do with someone who did not have a price, that simply their value system was not transferable into an anonymizable token. So actually, if we can tap into this value system that people have and enable them efficient ways to operate using their real value system, which is not entirely monetizable, even though they may need to also earn money, we need to give tools to that. And I think there's been too much focus on tools that are only about the transfer of money, and not focus of tools that are about your actual values that you might have and how you want to implement those in the world. Um, so money is necessary and we pay people, but we also want to make things that are not transferable. And so we're looking very carefully into how we want to construct our DAO, and we may have work-weighted tokens that are not transferable, which have voting power. So we're going to try to reflect this. Some things are transferable. There's investors who have a certain amount of voting power, and then there's people who've put work and their effort of their time into the company who are going to have voting power, and they can sell uh, token options over future equity that are part of their investment, but they can't sell the control. And so we're kind of separating the ability to invest in the company and have a monetizable return from the control. And those things have been conflated completely. And I think that's not necessary. I think that direction and control does not have to be conflated with a purchasable instrument.
Well, that actually really responds well in the realm of incentive to profit when it comes down to it. I'd actually pull from slicing pie to parallel here with you on the idea of time, ideas, relationships, and money. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you parallel that with like stuff like the wheel of life or more general like non-economic concepts, just strictly economic concepts, we have altruism, ego, profit, and learning, right? And so it's very, very interesting. And so I was watching Stargate last night with my wife, and I like Star Trek and Stargate. It always has a deep philosophical meaning behind each one of the episodes, and I very much enjoy that. If I am to spend TV time, it's that kind of TV in general. And
Mm-hmm.
so they were on, imagine the team has been trapped by a group of people on a planet that's a prison planet,
Mm-hmm.
right? And these people are pretty aware of how to motivate people, maybe not in the most kind manner.
Mm-hmm.
And the rebel leader looks, or this leader looks at this one guy who has a strong moral conviction, who his friend's life could not be quantified. And I've been in those classes where your insurance and doing a evaluation of a human life and those kinds of
Mm-hmm.
cold sciences. And the leader says to the guy, he says, well, I might not be able to motivate you that way, but I know how to. With any person like you, I just have to threaten your friends. That's
Yeah.
it. That's the interesting thing. And so I think the Russians, in a way, knew what they were doing, but they didn't want to pursue that path. And so we take it back. So how do you feel about the idea of a fear economy that's in the way of adoption?
Right. And I think, just in response to that, it reminds me of one of the fantasy fiction stories I used to read, and it was some kind of pirate story, and it's like, oh no, I have a principle against ever responding to blackmail because it would let you threaten me. You can kill him, and then I'll kill you. It's sort of like you still have a choice in how to respond to people, even if there's certain offense, because it's a matter of and there's sort of like a chosen almost insanity level you can have where you're not going to respond or perceive what a person is saying. You're just going to respond to what you decide to do. There's always a choice. There's always a choice of your own internal attitude and how much you want to accept or even interpret what somebody is saying around you. Um, but yeah, those are all interesting, thought experiments. Um,
It
as
comes
far
back
as
a lot of times to like the train car, right? A baby on the one train versus 20 of the world's most brilliant scientists on the other, and you have to, the
Right.
train
Well,
can't
I
be
mean,
stopped,
and you
right?
can
Yeah.
jump off, but I've never had much interest in those experiments because it always assumes that you're in sort of a constrained situation, and you know, I don't put a lot of stock in those um, because it's an assumption that you have these constraints from somebody, um,
Mhm.
and in fact, you know, you're making choices all the time in terms of what you do with your resources. But what you said in terms of fear, there's a sense that are you acting on principles or are you acting in terms of attempting to achieve an outcome? And um, so I think that what's more useful to me going forward, and in terms of trying to avoid a fear based economy, like you were saying, um,
In the way of adoption, yes.
in the way of adoption, and that's a really good question because adoption is going to be the real key element that we are grappling with right now in terms of adoption.
Hmm.
We're doing a lot
Hmm.
of video recordings of users and looking at what people are perceiving when they're trying to use our app and how we can change it. So we are in the midst of grappling with that. Um, and why would people use it? And I think people need to be invited. They need to be invited to, like you did, you invited me on this podcast to ask a question. And people need to be invited to express what it is they wish. People need to be invited to mentor others and to offer things. And so what we're trying to work with, and I don't know how successful it will be, this is one of the things we're experimenting with, is kind of the way Wikipedia has kind of peer moderators who get these roles. We're looking at kind of giving people peer ambassador roles where they could welcome people and invite them and have those conversations with them in like you said, in a person to person way. Because I think that people need to be invited to feel valued and to feel welcomed. So I'm hoping that we can create a culture of us inviting each other, but yet with boundaries, because also people are concerned about safety and predators and just all the things that can happen in a community. I certainly know that if there's any money involved, we're going to have scammers and fraudsters and credit card launderers. I'm very familiar with all that. I've worked in risk for a couple of years, so we'll have to be very vigilant in terms of how we're going to handle that. I have some ideas. But I think fundamentally, we want to create a culture of people inviting each other, of people valuing each other. So that's what we're hoping for instead of sort of a fear based system where it's like, oh, shoot, I have to get a good rating or I won't get another, I won't be on top and earn enough money. And you really have that in Airbnb and Amazon, in Uber. You do have a very fear based system where people feel the stress and pressure. And if they don't keep their ratings up, they're not going to make enough money. And that's not where we want to go with this.
Yeah, it's a very interesting space, and there's many roads to Rome in achieving a next evolution or a utopia or those kinds of things. And that isn't the idea of perfection either. Just for anyone listening here, I really appreciate what you're referring to because organizational technology is where I've started. There are
Yeah.
many places. There's economics. There are many places to start from here. And so, how to provide people with the technology to encourage these kinds of outcomes in their local, very sovereign environment, right? That's really cool. And you talked about individual liberty. So yeah, these things are they're rotating back through society right now, and there's a lot of centralization of, let's call it, power, and then it comes back to the classic idea of who, whom. So
Mhm.
who decides for whom, right? And those kinds of things, and that's pretty wild stuff. That's a much longer conversation than what we have time here for. So my next question would be is
So you guys are working on the adoption right now. How is that going? And how could people get involved maybe as ambassadors or involved in your community currently?
Oh, I love that question. And I just want to clarify too. We're talking about all these big ideas, but if you go to the whatsCookin.us and you click join, it's a very simple interface. There's nothing, no rocket science here. It's basically you have circles. The circles can be for your local community, it can be for your city, it can be for a thing you're interested in, and then you can basically make wishes that you wish people would provide, or you can make offers of something you would provide. And the whole interface, it just looks like Pinterest. It's just pictures of things people would do. You can click on them, and then you can talk to the people and set up a time. And then once you've set up a time, you can create an event, and other people can join your event. So it's just all about what is it you want to do. It's just the who, what, when, where, why. Who is on the platform? What are they interested in? When do you want to do it? And then you can, where are you going to do it? A meeting link or an actual physical place, and then and other people can then join in to that event if you want to make that public. So a lot of those are public in those circles. So it's just a matter of getting together in real time with people to do a thing. It's it's no, there really is no big rocket science there. That's what I was saying. The interface is fairly simple, and I think it needs to be pretty simple. But as far as how to get involved, yeah, it's whatsCookin.us, and you can go to where it says join or find your circle, and you can explore and see if there already is a circle in your city or your neighborhood or your interest. And if there's not, you can create a circle. So where do you live at, Brian? You live in, or I don't know if that's something you want to say on a podcast. Is that public knowledge? Oh, oops, now you're muted, I think.
Yep, I'm in the Midwest.
In the Midwest. So if you had a particular place in the Midwest that you wanted to create a circle, you could create one in that location. Um, and then you could invite your friends to it. You could make an offer for something you want to do. Um, Maybe you're willing to have coffee with people. Maybe you're willing to play music with people. Maybe you're willing to review each other's writing or whatever it is that you might like to do. You could make a wish. You could be like, gee, I wish somebody would cook Ethiopian food. I love Ethiopian food. I don't have a good restaurant near me. And then other people who are in that location can see your wishes and offers and can take you up on it. So it's really a matter of just expressing yourself in a context that you can find or create. And I would love for people to just join and make an offer or make a wish for how you want to interact with others.
That's really cool. And the amount of applications that you can have from that is everything from getting people together for dinner or starting a company.
That's right. I mean, the thing where it comes together is it's all about responsiveness and real time. So the only thing that we're trying to do on there is if you make an offer, to be willing to respond as a person if somebody texts you or messages you about that offer. And that might seem like a very small thing, but that actually rules out a lot of what goes on out there, which is kind of this broadcast spam. We're trying to keep that off the platform where you can't make an offer and then have a bot respond or make an offer and then not respond to it. The whole thing is that if you make an offer, you have to be willing to share your time in an even way with the people on there, who then they can talk to you, and you can talk back to them, and you can set a time, and then to do something in real time together. So that's kind of it's a very simple formula right
Sounds like your rating system is on the rise. I got it.
now.
I got it. Yeah, that's really cool. And what do you think are some things that are broadening your topic right now? Like what's happening in society right now that you're really excited about and shows you that your proof of concept, that you're headed in the right direction? What's keeping you going?
Oh, I mean, I really think there's a lot of things. I mean, the decentralized web space I think is exciting because There's a lot of energy towards kind of taking back on a personal level that the power of technology. Um, I think sometimes people in that kind of area get into a little bit of a bubble, and sometimes are solving the wrong problems that we don't are not the key problems. I don't think the key problem is absolute privacy or absolute security. That some folks do see that as the problem, and I see it more as making the interactions easy, efficient, and discoverable. But there's a room for everybody in that space. I think there's a big recognition that as a society we're more fragmented. People are obviously seeing these bad effects on social media of bad actors using them essentially to manipulate large pieces of society. Even before that, there was a book, Bowling Alone, of seeing how society was more isolated, and people were more isolated and physical away from their neighbors. So there's a lot of energy, I think, in people willing to try to counteract that. Um, and then really I just get the energy from all the individuals. I'm a very inductive person, and all the individuals who are using the platform for fun things. I mean, we did a teacher comedy workshop, and teachers went up on stage as comedy virgins, and it was just a super super fun thing that evolved out of a use of our platform. But it evolved out of the people using the platform. It wasn't the platform itself that made it. And we had a really successful event. We raised money for teachers in Tucson. And so things like that really energize me when I see all this potential that can happen, and then I just want to enable it everywhere.
Well, that's really cool. And are you willing to share a way that people can reach out to you specifically?
Yeah, sure. I'm Golda at whatsCookin.us, and you can email me. Um, and you can also find my offers on the platform. We have I'm in Tucson, and I have offers on the platform of things I'm willing to do. We have a What's Cooking circle that you don't actually find on the platform. You have to know about, um, and and we make a lot of offers to each other on there. There's a community builder circle. I'm also there. I have an offer out there to help mentor people in technology, and spend a half an hour doing that. So yeah, I have a lot of offers on the platform, so you can use it to find me and ask for that time, and I'd be happy to give it.
That sounds great. And if I'm, since I'm a community organizer, I'm going to be interested in finding out more. So, what was that website again, or where people can
So,
find?
so if you go to What's Cookin, so whatsCookin.us, that's our website, and you have to go from there to kind of join the app. And
Mhm.
when you join the app, you'll see the different circles. And I think the one you'd be interested in, Bryant, is probably the community builders circle. And if you make an offer there, if there's something you're willing to offer to people, I know you have a lot to offer. So if you're willing to offer to, have a mentoring session or something that could be a public mentoring session that we'd invite other people to, if you make that offer, I bet people will take you up on it. And then you can hold a session, and other people could join. Um, so yeah, I think that would be just fantastic. We've done a lot of fun things. Um, I'd love to use this little art interactive thing called Pickles. I don't know if you've ever used it. That's another thing we have in the community builders. I think you'd love it. It's a kind of simul art thing that we can do in a group. But anyway, there's a lot of fun things out there. You can just join and see what's available, or offer something yourself, and that would be fantastic.
That sounds great. I will try to push that out to the community, and I'd love to put an offer out here that I'd be happy to if people from the Blueprint community show up. You guys, I'll spend 10 minutes per join, right? And this is from our current community. Obviously, if 10 years down the road somebody takes me up on this offer, I got a
Well,
ton.
see, that's the way it will become efficient, though, because if you just make an offer to mentor people, say, and
Sure.
then you schedule that half an hour, you just schedule the one half an hour, and then you put it as the public event, and then you can limit the number of people who could join, and then it could be 20 people join in that half an hour. So we
That's
got
great.
that solved.
How can we donate to each other? How can we help each other go faster? How can we get the most out of life by supporting each other? Is that a good way to close it here?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brian. I love being on here. I love the questions you have.
Yeah, this is great. I have so much to be grateful for my community, and a shout out to every one of you in the Blueprint, Smart Founders, or any other projects that have come out of those communities. All of you have left almost something like a spice in the soup, whether you're working with us or not, and how to sustain ourselves. How can we all eat from that soup? And so it sounds like, guys, I'm gonna go make some soup with what's cooking, and I hope to see you guys there. We'll catch you next time whenever it dawns on me to spawn up another podcast with someone. As you guys know, this is something that we do as we find people who really inspire us. And if you have someone who really inspires you, we would love to know about that. Highlight them on here. We still run this podcast on the intention that we were alone to begin with, and then we found some amazing people that inspired us. So please do start up your own, or go share some joy with someone. Find something beautiful. Maybe it might affect the question that drives you, and you might make some lives better because of that. So thank you, Golda, for your time. Again, I really appreciate everybody who has joined us. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bryant.